For months, the rumor mill has been on fire. Leaks claiming the 2027 Chevy Colorado's turbocharged 2.7-liter engine was getting a massive power bump. 350 horsepower, 440 pound-feet of torque, a serious jump over the current numbers. Enthusiast forums were buzzing. Truck sites were running headlines. Everyone was bracing for GM to drop a genuine performance bombshell on the mid-size truck segment. Then the actual order guide came out. And what it revealed shocked people for a completely different reason than anyone expected. Today, we're breaking down exactly what happened with the 2027 Colorado's engine, why the leaks and the reality don't match up, and the one number buried in the fine print that GM didn't put in any press release. Let's start with the setup, because understanding the hype is key to understanding why the actual news landed so differently. Back in the spring, GM Authority, one of the most reliable sources for GM insider information, reported that the TurboMax turbocharged 2.7-liter four-cylinder was getting a genuine power increase for the next-generation Silverado and Sierra. Shortly after, that same reporting extended to the Colorado and Canyon, its mid-size siblings. Then, credible unofficial leaks put actual numbers on it: 350 horsepower and 440 pound-feet of torque, up from the current 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet. That's roughly a 13% jump. For an engine that's already class competitive, that would have been a real shot across the bow at every rival in the midsize segment. So when Chevrolet quietly opened the 2027 Colorado order books on August 3rd, with, notably, zero fanfare, no press release, nothing, everyone expected those numbers to show up in black and white. Here's what actually happened. The engine gets a new internal code, L4B, replacing the outgoing L3B designation it's carried since 2023. And the horsepower and torque figures listed in that order guide? Still 310 horsepower. Still 430 pound-feet of torque. Identical to the outgoing engine. So, did the leaks lie? Not necessarily. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting. A code change from L3B to L4B isn't cosmetic. Regular production option codes are tied to real hardware and calibration differences under the hood, parts catalogs, tuning specs, service procedures, all built around that specific code. Something changed inside this engine. Chevrolet just hasn't told us what yet. And here's the detail almost nobody's talking about. The one number that actually did change, and not in the direction anyone was hoping for: towing capacity. For years, the standard Colorado trims were rated at 7,700 pounds of towing. In the new 2027 order guide, that number drops to 7,000 pounds. That's a 700-pound cut, and it's directly tied to this engine code change. Think about what that actually means. If the horsepower and torque numbers on paper are staying exactly the same, but the truck's real-world towing capability just went down, something changed in this engine's underlying calibration or hardware that GM isn't fully disclosing yet. That's not the headline anyone expected walking into this order guide. Now, there's a bigger piece of this story that puts everything in context. This same L4B engine code isn't just going into the Colorado. It's also headed for the completely redesigned 2027 Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra. Chevrolet's own press materials specifically call out an enhanced TurboMax delivering best-in-class standard torque in that next-generation truck, paired with a new 10-speed transmission instead of the current 8-speed. So here's a theory worth considering. The real performance enhancements to this engine architecture may be arriving specifically for the full-size trucks, paired with that new 10-speed transmission, while the Colorado and Canyon, which keep their existing 8-speed, get the same underlying code update without the same output gains, and possibly some conservative recalibration that cost them that towing capacity in the process. That would explain everything. The leaks weren't necessarily wrong about the engine getting real changes. They just may have been describing changes destined for the half-ton trucks, which got mistakenly attached to the mid-size Colorado in the rumor cycle. So where does this leave Colorado buyers heading into 2027? Here's the honest breakdown. You're not getting more horsepower. You're not getting more torque, at least not according to what's published right now. You are getting a new engine code that suggests something changed under the hood. 3 new exterior colors, 2 new wheel designs, faster onboard Wi-Fi, and a convenience package finally reaching the off-road trims. And you're getting 700 fewer pounds of towing capacity than the outgoing model. That's not the shocking power upgrade the rumor mill promised. It's a different kind of shock entirely. A truck that looks like it should be more capable on paper, carrying a new and improved engine code, sharper styling, new colors, new wheels, all the hallmarks of an upgrade, while quietly pulling back in one of the categories buyers actually care about most. 700 pounds might not sound dramatic in isolation, but if you're someone who tows close to that limit regularly, a travel trailer, a boat, equipment for work, that's the difference between a truck that handles your load comfortably and one that's suddenly cutting it closer than you're used to. And that's exactly why this story matters more than a simple horsepower headline would have. A power bump is easy to notice and easy to market. A quiet reduction in towing capacity, buried in an order guide with zero press release, dropped on a random Monday in August with no fanfare at all. That's the kind of change most buyers won't discover until they're already standing at the dealership, or worse, until they've already signed the paperwork and hooked up a trailer that used to fit comfortably within spec. If you're cross-shopping mid-sized trucks heading into 2027, whether you're looking at the Colorado specifically, or weighing it against the Tacoma, the Ranger, or the Gladiator, this is exactly the kind of detail that gets buried under color options and wheel designs in most coverage. Most outlets are going to run the headline about new paint colors and faster Wi-Fi and call it a day. But the number that actually determines what you can physically do with this truck, what you can hook up to the back of it and drive away with, is the one sitting quietly in the fine print. And it's the one number that got worse, not better. Now here's where this story is far from finished. Remember, this same L4B engine code is heading into the completely redesigned 2027 Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra, where Chevrolet's own marketing is calling it an enhanced TurboMax with best-in-class standard torque, riding alongside a brand-new 10-speed transmission. If the real gains from this engine update are landing specifically on the full-size trucks, that raises a genuinely interesting question about whether the Colorado and Canyon simply inherited a code change without the benefits, or whether GM is holding something back that we haven't seen yet. If you want us to dig into exactly what Chevrolet's enhanced TurboMax actually delivers for the full-size Silverado and Sierra, the trucks that might be getting the real, fully realized version of this engine update, complete with the numbers GM is actually willing to put in a headline, let me know in the comments. That breakdown is coming the moment official specs land, and based on exactly how this Colorado story played out, there's a good chance the full picture looks very different once the real numbers go public. We've already seen GMT's best-in-class standard torque for the Silverado version without giving us an actual figure, which tells you they're sitting on something they're clearly proud of. The question is just how big that number turns out to be, and whether it finally explains what the Colorado quietly gave up to get there. Because here's the thing worth sitting with. Sometimes a code change on a mid-sized truck ends up being a footnote. And sometimes, like this one, it ends up being the thread that unravels a much bigger story about where an entire engine platform is actually headed. Right now, all the real evidence points toward the full-size trucks getting the meaningful version of this update, while the Colorado and Canyon absorbed some kind of trade-off along the way. We won't know the full why until Chevrolet actually says it out loud. And historically, they don't rush to explain the parts of an order guide that don't sound great in a press release. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of every real engine story happening across the truck industry right now, because this is exactly the kind of detail that gets lost between the leak and the headline. Buried in an order guide instead of a press conference, 3 sentences deep in a spec sheet instead of the first paragraph of a news article. They were the entire story, and almost nobody covering this the day it dropped even noticed. That's exactly the gap we're here to close. Finding the number that actually matters before it gets lost in the noise of colors, wheels, and Wi-Fi upgrades.